Ghost. Ghost is a band that is fronted by Tobias Forge and is kind of the visionary of the band, the only real member who's been there the whole time. And this is one of the first bands I ever listened to that was a little bit more heavier than most, with the likes of other bands such as Slipknot and Marilyn Manson. And that's why I wanted to discuss this band, as well as they're just trending on TikTok. They have a whopping 8 million monthly listeners on Spotify. A year prior, they only had 1 million. So they've boosted a heavy following, as well as just accelerated into the mainstream. And that's why we're discussing them today. And if you have any other European metal bands that you'd like me to know, let me know down in the comments. I don't listen to that many European bands besides Ghost, obviously, as well as some black metal like Emperor and Immortal. So let me know down in the comments, like I said, of any good European bands. But with that out of the way, let's discuss the actual material. So their debut, I actually really enjoy their debut, and I'm going to give it an A tier because it sounds like nothing else in their discography because it's much more heavier, it's much more dark and decrepit and more riveting. And I especially love the songs Ritual, Elizabeth.
Underneath the moonlight of Bulgarian skies,
Satan Prayer, Genesis, and every other song in there. It's really all killer, no filler, except the only reason that's not S tier is just because it's very primitive and it doesn't really cover the signature style of what we would later know of Ghost, so that's why it's an A, but it's still a really good album. Now, Ghost BC, back when that's what their band name was. This album is not very good, and I'm going to give it a C. It's the lowest I'll probably rank on here, maybe besides some EPs, but yeah, this Ghost album is not very good because a lot of the deep cuts are just not very memorable. I do love Year Zero. Year Zero is one of the most badass hard rock songs ever. And it also has other songs like Body and Blood, but everything else is just meh. It's probably their worst album, but it's still really good despite that. This is not a bad album. Compared to most other hard rock albums, this album's pretty good. It's just like I said, there's not a lot of originality and it's just very boring and it's kind of all filler, no killer. So this EP that was actually produced by Dave Grohl from the legendary bands Foo Fighters as well as Nirvana. I would give it a B just because the covers are really good if you have Ghosts. Everything it's not like the most original thing ever, but it's definitely they do good covers and I kind of hope they eventually do a cover album. That'd be pretty cool. Like a small cover album of a lot of songs. I know they covered one of the Metallica songs, but that's me digressing. Good EP. Meliora, I believe. S tier. This is where all their standout hits are, like Cirrus, as well as other tracks like Square Hammer. You have your From the Pinnacle to the Pit, Bible. He is one of the best ballads they've ever done, as well as one of the best ballads in metal in general. And yeah, it's a great album for a good reason because this is where they kind of started to become more prominent in the metal scene as well as hard rock scene. And there's a reason why they're very popular, and it's because of this album. Very solid album. It's not my favorite. That goes to Prequel. Prequel is a very solid album for a number of reasons. It has one of the best ballads ever, Life Eternal. It's one of my favorite ballads ever. And it's what got me into the band. I just love how beautiful that song sounds. It's such a positive and just beautiful song. I totally play that at a wedding.
can you feel me longing for you forever and ever?
Even though it's about very disturbing and, let's just say, not for the faint of heart lyrical content. But besides that, the lyrics are pretty good on this album. There is some cheese like Rats, but Rats is a good song. See the Light is pretty good. It's not my favorite ballad, but still pretty good. Faith is probably my favorite song in the album because it's very heavy, very just in your face, and I love it. Sounds like Metallica. and just an overall good album. It's probably my favorite, and I hope they kind of come back to this sound again. They probably won't, but it's still pretty. I'd like to, and I'd love to see this album live. Now, I am kind of annoyed they don't have the one EP on here, a really good EP that has their biggest song ever, 7 Inches of Satanic Panic. I'm wondering why they didn't include this because Mariana Cross, for those who don't know, is their biggest song ever from TikTok. It's the reason why they have like 8 million monthly listeners. We're even at 15 million at one point. It's because of this song. It's their biggest song, and yeah, it baffles me how it's not on here. And if it was on here, I'd probably put it at B tier just because their best song is not their most popular. And I completely stand by that. It's an annoying situation because I just wish people would listen to other songs from the band because that song's not their best, like I said, but it's still pretty good. And I kind of hope they make an album that sounds like this EP because this EP sounds like a 60s psychedelic rock EP, and I kind of wish or I kind of hope as well as they kind of venture back into this and make an album. I'm not sure if they will, but like I said, there is hope for it. Now, their previous or their newest album, I would give it an A too. It's a pretty solid release. My only complaint is it's not very original. Impera is not very original, but it has a lot of influences of 80s music, 80s rock bands like Def Leppard, and they would even collaborate with Def Leppard with Spillways. They make a version of that. It's all right version, but it's still pretty unique. And they have a lot of songs that sound like Van Halen and shit like that from the 80s, like Kassarion, Spillways, which is one of my favorite Ghost songs now, just 'cause it's so catchy. It's a good pop song. And Hunter's Moon, which was featured on Friday the 13th, I believe, as well as other songs like 20s. 20s is probably my favorite song on here, as well as Spillways. A lot of people don't really enjoy this album because of a lot of critics like Needle Drop, but I think this album has aged well over time since its release around a year or so ago. It's a really good album. It's a grower, not a shower. And if you listen to it for a while, you'll understand what I mean. And that about wraps it up. What are your thoughts on this list? What did I do right? What did I do wrong? Let me know down in the comments. And if you want to see more bands, let me know also down in the comments as well. It's just give me some suggestions of some European bands since I kind of am foreign to that obviously because I'm from America, but I just don't know a lot of European bands. I do know, like I said, black metal bands like Emperor Immortal, good bands, and I know some British bands obviously like Black Sabbath, which inspired this band by the way. But it's just I want to hear more European bands, and like I said, let me know down in the comments what are the best European bands, and it doesn't matter what genre it is in, just let me know in general. And thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and peace out.